I moved to the small coastal town just a few weeks ago. I needed a break from the city, searching for inspiration to write. My apartment was above a cozy café that closed early each night. The place was quiet, maybe too quiet. I'll never forget how strange that first night was. I had just settled into my new home, and everything felt normal. I grabbed my notebook and set it on the nightstand. After turning off the lamp, I listened to the rain tapping against the window. Then suddenly I heard a different tapping. My first thought was branches hitting the glass. I focused, but nothing else seemed out of the ordinary. I told myself it was only the wind. But that tapping continued, persistent and rhythmic. As the week dragged on, those noises grew louder, almost desperate. I began to hear whispers on the wind. Felt unsettling, but I couldn't make out the words. Each night, I listened, and each night, the sound sent chills down my spine. I moved closer to the window but saw nothing in the fog. Still, the air felt heavy, and I knew I was being watched. I couldn't take it anymore. One night, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The streetlights flickered, sending shadows dancing across the pavement. I thought I saw something move in the mist, figures that disappeared just as I approached. My heart raced with every step. It felt unnatural, like they were avoiding me intentionally. I felt cold fear wrap around my body. As days passed, the whispers got louder, and now they seemed to call my name. I sat in the cafe below, hoping to gather my thoughts, but it was hard to focus. The town felt strange and secretive, as if it had stories buried deep beneath its surface. I couldn't shake the notion that something was hiding, something meant for me. On a particularly murky night, I stood by the window, shaking with uncertainty. I thought I saw someone in the alley below. I squinted but couldn't be sure. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't want to believe it, but it felt real. Was I losing my grip on reality? Then I heard the voice again, much clearer this time. It asked, "Why are you here?" Panic surged through me. I spun around, but there was no one there. The emptiness around me felt suffocating. Had I imagined it? Was I really losing my mind? I stepped back from the window, trembling. I could feel a shadow creeping closer, wrapping around my senses. I didn't know what was coming, but it felt sinister. The whispers escalated into a cacophony that echoed in my mind, telling me to run, to leave. But where would I go? The door creaked as I pressed against it, and I looked out one last time. What was this town hiding? I felt inescapably drawn in, and I didn't know if I was ready to uncover the secrets lurking in the fog. The next morning, I woke up late, disoriented and drained. The whispers had faded into my dream, but I still felt their pull. I decided I had to get some answers, so I took a walk down to the cafe. Maybe the barista, an older woman named Edna, could shed some light on the town. As I approached, I noticed the odd way the townspeople moved about, their eyes cast downward. They seemed to avoid each other's gazes, like they all shared a secret they wanted to keep buried. Edna greeted me with a warm smile, but I could sense a tension in her voice when I sat down at the counter. "Morning," she chirped. "What can I get you?" "Just coffee, please," I replied, forcing a casual tone. "Hey, I've been hearing some strange noises at night, like whispers. Is this town haunted or something?" Her smile faltered. She glanced around, as if expecting someone to jump out and shush her. "Just the wind, hon. This place has its quirks, is all." "Quirks?" I pressed, my curiosity piqued. "Sometimes, the fog brings the past back with it," she said hesitantly, stirring the coffee. "You just gotta know when to listen and when to ignore." Her vague answer frustrated me, but I decided to let it go for now. As I sipped my coffee, I noticed a figure hovering by the cafe's entrance. A man in a dark coat, slicked back hair, and an unreadable expression. He looked out of place. My instincts told me to avoid him, but I couldn't help myself. He walked over and leaned against the counter. "You're new here, aren't you?" he asked, fixing his piercing eyes on me. My stomach dropped. Yeah, just moved in a few weeks ago," I managed, trying to mask my unease. "Be careful," he warned, his voice barely above a whisper. "There are things in the fog that don't want you here." His words felt like ice water poured down my back. Before I could respond, he turned and disappeared into the mist outside. I sat frozen for a moment, unsure of what to think. Edna was watching me, her face pale. "Don't worry about him," she said softly, a trace of concern in her voice. "He's just eccentric. Ignore the warnings. They're nothing but stories." But my heart raced. This town was suffused with a tension I couldn't name, and the fog outside only thickened my anxiety. I left the cafe, my mind racing. I returned to my apartment, determined to get some writing done and distract myself from the madness swirling around me. I stared at the blank page, but nothing flowed. The whispers were back, faint but persistent, and underlined by a chilling urgency. That night, as I sat in the stillness, I heard the voice again. "Why are you here?" It had returned with a vengeance, echoing louder than before. I felt my heart pound. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, disoriented and gasping for breath. Darkness surrounded me, thick and oppressive. I fumbled for my phone, its screen casting a weak glow across the room. It showed midnight. The whispers had stopped, but their echo lingered, a haunting reminder of the question that had rattled me to my core. "Why are you here?" Panic bubbled within me as I scanned the apartment, looking for anything out of place. I held my breath, trying to listen over the pounding of my heart. A noise soft, almost like a tapping, came from the window. I hesitated but then moved closer. I peeled back the curtain just enough to see outside. The fog had thickened to an almost suffocating level, blanketing everything in a ghostly white. And there, just beyond my window, was the figure of a woman. She stood still and silent, her dark hair pulled tightly back, her clothes blending seamlessly with the shadows. I couldn't make out her face, but I felt her eyes boring into me. "Who are you?" I whispered, though I knew she couldn't hear me. Suddenly, she stepped back into the fog, disappearing as quickly as she had appeared. I stumbled back from the window, tripping over a chair as dread settled in my stomach. My hands trembled as I pulled out my laptop, desperate to record the events. But the words wouldn't come. My mind was a mess of confusion and fear. Then I remembered Edna's words about the fog bringing the past back with it. What did it mean? I needed answers. I couldn't shake the feeling that the whispers and the woman were connected somehow. At dawn, I decided to take a walk around town, hoping to gather clues. I passed the cafe first, but Edna wasn't in yet. Continuing along the main street, I spotted a small library down the road. Maybe old records or local lore would provide insight into the town's secrets. The library was quiet, the air stale with age. I wandered down the aisles, my fingers brushing against worn spines. It felt eerie, like the building was holding its breath. After searching for what felt like hours, I came across a dusty book on local history. The cover was tattered, but I could make out its title, The Haunting Secrets of Whispering Fog. I opened it, flipping through pages filled with black and white photos and fragmented stories about strange occurrences and missing people. The deeper I read, the more unsettled I became. Each tale echoed the whispers I heard, people lured into the fog, never to return. Just as I reached a passage about the woman in the mist, the library door swung open. A chill rushed through me, and I looked up to find the man from the cafe standing there. His gaze locked onto mine, and for the first time, I felt fear radiating off him. "You should leave this town," he said, his voice sharp and urgent. "Before the fog calls to you too." I didn't know what to say. I was about to respond, but then everything went cold. The lights above flickered and dimmed, and the whispers returned, overwhelming in their intensity. "Why are you still here?" It was coming from everywhere, the walls, the air, and my own mind. I backed away, heart racing, as shadows seemed to creep closer. Something was wrong, something I couldn't understand. And then I felt it, the pull, right at the edges of my consciousness, beckoning me forward. The fog was waiting for me, and I didn't want to find out why. The moment the whispers escalated, I instinctively turned to the man by the door. His eyes were wide with fear, mirroring my own. "What's happening?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper amidst the chaos swirling around us. He stepped further inside, closing the door behind him. The fog is coming. You need to get out of here. The urgency in his tone sent chills down my spine. I didn't care that I didn't know him. All I felt was the overwhelming need to escape this place before it consumed me. I turned back to the book, slamming it shut as if to silence the echoes trapped within its pages. Why are you here? I pressed. Do you know anything about the woman I saw? He hesitated, glancing toward the windows where shadows danced in the light. She's part of it. She lures people into the fog. Once you step in, you might not come back. A wave of nausea rolled over me. So it's true? The stories, the disappearances? I felt sick just thinking about it. Yes, he replied firmly. You can't let the fog find you. You must leave. Suddenly, the calm facade of the library shattered. The lights flickered violently, plunging us into near darkness. And the whispers grew louder, marching toward a crescendo that felt almost tangible. Why are you still here? They pressed, the voices wrapping around me like a shroud. I needed to think. My mind raced as I backed away from the noise. How do we get out? I demanded, trying to shake off the feeling of impending doom. He took a step closer to me, voice lowering. Follow me. Before I could respond, he turned and dashed for the exit. I hesitated for just a heartbeat, but then followed. We pushed through the door, the cold air hitting my face like ice. Outside, the fog clung to everything, wrapping around our legs. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting it to swallow the library whole. But it wasn't the building I feared. It was the figure of the woman, flickering like a specter in the distance, watching. Keep moving, he urged, pulling me along. I stumbled as we broke into a sprint down the street, our breath visible in the frigid air. The world around us grew increasingly dim, the fog thickening, and I could feel the whispers closing in. Don't look back, he insisted, his grip tightening. But I couldn't help it. My instincts screamed at me to know what haunted us. I peeked back, and there she was, the woman from my window, standing just beyond the reach of the streetlights. I saw her face clearly for the first time, sad eyes, hollow and empty, as though they were calling me home. Run, he shouted, pulling me back into the present. My legs felt heavy, as if the fog itself weighed me down. I focused on him, the only anchor in the maelstrom. We dashed around a corner and entered a narrow alleyway, the whispers growing more frantic. Their tone shifted, morphing into a pulse of desperate cries. That S when I saw it. At the end of the alley was a door, slightly ajar. I knew instinctively it was our only chance. Come on, I yelled, adrenaline surging. We rushed toward the door, but before we could reach it, a cold breeze washed over us. The whispers crescendoed, wrapping us in their chilling embrace. Why are you still here? The question rattled deep in my bones. I pushed the door open, but my heart raced. What awaited us on the other side was unknown, and the fog behind us continued to beckon. With one last glance over my shoulder, I stepped into the darkness beyond the door. The darkness enveloped us as I stepped through the door. I braced myself for whatever lay beyond, but when I crossed the threshold, I found myself in a narrow hallway. Dim light flickered from a bare bulb hanging above, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. At first, I thought I might be safe, but the whispers from the fog nagged at my mind, a relentless reminder of what we had just escaped. Where are we? I asked, still panting from the sprint. We should be safe for now, he said, his voice tense. But we can't stay long. This place is connected to the fog. I glanced around, taking in the peeling wallpaper and the scattering of debris on the floor. The smell of dampness hung in the air, creating an unsettling familiarity. Connected? How? He shook his head, brushing a hand through his hair in frustration. It's a refuge for those who lost their way. But some never leave. We need to find the exit. I bit my lip, my heart sinking at the thought of running again, deeper into an uncertain world. What if the woman follows us? Then we won't have much time. We have to move. He led the way down the hallway, and I followed close behind, my heart pounding louder than ever. Each creak of the floorboards echoed ominously, as if the building itself were warning us to turn back. At the end of the hall, we found a staircase spiraling upward. I could hear faint echoes of laughter mixed with sobs drifting down from above. A chill raced up my spine. "What is that?" I whispered. "Others," he said tersely. "Those who got caught. They've become part of this place." My feet faltered for a moment, fear coiling in my gut. "We can't let that happen to us." He nodded resolutely and started up the stairs. With each step, the air grew colder, and the laughter turned into more desperate cries. Suddenly, the light flickered again, plunging us into total darkness. I grabbed his arm, panic surging through me. "What's happening?" The lights returned, and in that brief moment of darkness, I thought I saw a figure at the end of the hallway. It was her, the woman, standing still, watching. My breath quickened as dread settled deeper in my chest. He turned back, his face pale. "We have to keep moving." I followed his lead, but the weight of her gaze felt like a noose tightening around me. We ascended the stairs quickly, urgency pushing us onward. As we reached the top, I spotted a door at the end of the landing. I rushed toward it, my heart racing. But just as I reached for the handle, I heard her voice, a soft, melodic whisper cutting through the air. "Stay with me." I froze, the invitation curling around my thoughts. I turned slightly, drawn to the sound. "What's she saying?" "Don't listen," he shouted, pulling me back. "She's trying to lure you in." That's when everything went dark again, swallowing the hallway in a thick void. My pulse raced, and I felt his grip on my arm tighten. "Go," he shouted, shoving me toward the door. I pushed it open, flinging myself into the room beyond. But as I crossed the threshold, I wasn't alone. The air shimmered, and the woman appeared at the doorway, her sad eyes locking onto mine. "No," I cried, but I was trapped, unable to look away. In that moment, I realized I didn't just need to escape. I needed to fight back, and I was about to find out just how far I was willing to go. The room I stumbled into was smaller, the walls closing in around me. Felt suffocating, but there was no time to panic. I spun around, looking for a way out, my breath catching when I realized the woman was still standing at the door. Her expression twisted from sadness to something darker, more predatory. "Let her go," I shouted, my voice trembling. "She's not real." But instead of vanishing, her smile widened, and she took a step closer. "Why fight it? You can stay with me, forever." "Don't listen," he urged again, his voice sharp and insistent. He stepped between us, shielding me. "We need to find anything useful in here." I tore my gaze from the woman, turning to scan the tiny room. It was filled with old, dusty furniture, mismatched chairs, and a heavy wooden table. Shadows filled the corners, shifting with every flicker of the overhead light. Then, from behind the table, something caught my eye. A small wooden box with intricate carvings on the lid. It looked old, too old. "What's that?" I whispered, pointing. "Don't touch it," he shouted as the woman's gaze locked onto the box as well. Her interest suddenly piqued. My heartbeat quickened as I edged closer, despite his warning. I had to know. I could feel energy radiating from it, calling to me like a distant siren. "No," he insisted, but I reached for the box anyway. The moment my fingers brushed its surface, the air thickened. The woman's smile vanished, replaced with a scowl. I pulled away, startled as a stream of memories flooded my mind, faint echoes of laughter, shadows of faces I didn't recognize. They surrounded me, voices whispering indistinct words, intertwining with the cries I had heard earlier. "Help us," a voice urged, sharp like glass. I shook my head, trembling. "What is happening?" "Stop," he yelled, panic lacing through his voice. He lunged toward me, but the woman raised her hand, and he froze, a look of fear crossing his face. "Stay with me," she sang again. "You can join us." "Join who?" I demanded, feeling the weight of the box pulling at me. "What do you want from me?" She stepped closer, her eyes glinting with hunger. "Your fear, your doubt." I can make it all go away. Just give in. No, I shouted, fighting against the pressure closing in. I had to resist. I couldn't become like those others I sensed around me. But then the whispers grew louder, invasive. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block them out, but they burrowed into my thoughts. There's always a choice, I heard from beyond the chaos. It was his voice, breaking through like a lifeline. I forced my eyes open and met his gaze. Help me. Before he could respond, the woman lunged toward me, but I dove to the side, reaching for the box again. Maybe it held the key to breaking her hold. As I lifted the lid, the air shimmered, and a rush of wind burst from the box, sending the shadows screeching back. For a moment, I stood amid chaos, unsure what would come next. Then everything went dark again, but this time, I felt a shift. Fear morphed into determination. I wasn't finished fighting yet. I blinked, and suddenly, I was no longer in the small room. Instead, I found myself standing on a cobblestone street, the air thick with mist. It was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that raised the hairs on the back of my neck. I hesitated, confusion swirling in my mind. Where was I? Had I escaped the woman? I glanced around, seeking any familiar landmarks, but nothing looked right. Dimly lit street lamps flickered above me, casting shadows that danced in the fog. I shivered, the cool air wrapping around me like a cold reminder of what I had just faced. Are you all right? His voice pulled me back to the moment, cutting through the stillness. He stood close, looking as bewildered as I felt. I think so, I managed, my heartbeat still racing. There was a heaviness in my chest as if the shadows of the previous room still clung to me. What just happened? I don't know, he replied, scanning the street. But we have to keep moving. We can't stay here. Before I could respond, a distant sound echoed through the mist, a soft humming, almost melodic. I frowned, glancing in the direction it came from. The sound felt familiar, tugging at something deep within me. Do you hear that? I asked, stepping toward the sound, drawn in like a moth to a flame. Wait, he warned, but I ignored him. I had to know. As I moved deeper into the mist, the humming grew louder and seemed to weave through the air, wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. I could almost see shapes forming within the fog, shadows flitting just beyond my vision. They danced and shifted, teasing me. I paused, the cold creeping back in when the humming changed. A low whisper now, the notes twisted into something sinister. The comfort turned into a warning, sending chills down my spine. That's not right, he said, a sense of urgency creeping into his voice. We shouldn't be here. But I couldn't stop myself. The humming was intoxicating, luring me closer. I felt a pull, a connection to the voices that whispered through the fog. They weren't just sounds. They were memories, ghosts of the past that craved recognition. Don't. He grabbed my wrist, but I was already slipping away from him. The fog thickened, swirling around me, obscuring everything but the hypnotic sound. Then I saw them, figures emerging from the mist, faces twisted in sorrow and anger, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They reached toward me, pleading, "Help us!" They cried in unison, joining in the eerie melody. "Get back!" he shouted, pulling me away just as one of the figures lunged forward. It was too late. The whispers swarmed around me, tightening like a vice. I could feel their desperation, their pain, stretching beyond my own. "Stop it!" I screamed, fighting against the force. I couldn't let them take me. I wasn't done yet. The sound of my voice shattered the moment, and suddenly everything felt fragile. The figures hesitated, confusion flickering in their hollow eyes. That hesitation cut through the fog, a lifeline tugging me back toward reality. As I fought to regain my footing, I spotted the box from before, shimmering faintly in the distance, glowing with a promise hidden in its heart. "Let us go." I pulled away from him, my resolve strengthening. If that box held the key to ending this nightmare, I had to reach it. But the figures surged forward again, blocking my path, their cries growing louder. "Help us!" they shrieked, and with that, the world around me started to crumble, the mist closing in fast, erasing everything I had just seen. I braced myself, fear rippling through me. I wasn't ready to give up yet, not when I was so close to the truth. But a different kind of darkness loomed ahead, a darkness that felt alive, threatening to swallow me whole as I sprinted toward the glowing box. I pushed through the shadows, heart racing as I sprinted toward the glowing box. The mist seemed to thicken around me, pulling at my clothes, wrapping around my legs like a living thing. I couldn't let it stop me. I focused on the light, narrowing my vision until it was the only thing that mattered. "Wait," he shouted behind me, but his voice was drowned out by the cacophony of whispers. The figures clawed at my thoughts, their screams blending into the sound of the wind. Each step felt like a battle against the unseen force holding me back. As I got closer to the box, the air crackled with energy, and I could almost feel the warmth radiating from it. I reached out, fingertips grazing its surface. Just as I did, the world around me jolted violently, like a rug being pulled from beneath my feet. Then everything went dark. I gasped, landing on something solid but cold. I could barely see, the darkness pressing down on me. Panic rose in my chest. "Where am I?" I whispered, heart pounding with fear. Suddenly, the glowing box flickered back into existence, illuminating the area around me. I was in a vast, dark room cluttered with debris. Old furniture lay strewn about, and what looked like crumbling artifacts lined the walls. But it was the box that caught all my attention. It was pulsating now, casting shifting shadows that danced like ghosts. "What happened?" he asked, emerging from the shadows, his face pale. "I think we were pulled in," I said, glancing around. The air felt charged, almost electric. "That box, it must hold something powerful." "Powerful or dangerous," he replied, stepping carefully next to me. "Whatever it is, we need to be cautious. There's something off about this place." My stomach tightened at the thought, but curiosity kept me rooted. "We need to open it. We need to know what it is." As if in response, the box creaked open slowly. The sound echoed hollowly in the room. A bright light spilled out, casting strange silhouettes around us. I squinted at the contents, my heart racing with anticipation and dread. Inside lay a collection of shimmering stones, each pulsating softly in different colors, like a heartbeat. "This feels wrong," he said, eyeing the box warily. "What if we shouldn't touch them?" But I felt drawn to them. These stones vibrated with energy and whispered secrets I couldn't quite grasp. My fingers twitched, wanting to reach out. However, the shadows around us stirred ominously. Then I heard it, a low growl emanating from the far corner of the room. My heart stopped. Something was lurking in the dark, something real and dangerous. "Run!" I shouted, and we sprinted back, leaving the glowing box behind. The growl increased, echoing through the vast emptiness. I could feel eyes watching us, hungry and relentless. Just when we thought we were safe, the growling turned into a cacophony of echoes, merging with the whispers from before. The ominous voice sang through the air. Helpless panic surged through me, pushing us onward. We had to escape, but the threat drew closer, closing in as the walls seemed to pulse alive. With one last desperate glance behind us, I saw shapes darting into the light, and that's when I realized these were no ghosts. They were alive, real, and they wanted something. "Don't stop," I yelled, and we ran faster, desperate to find an exit before whatever hunted us could strike. The sound of our footsteps echoed off the cold walls, but the growl was louder. It reverberated through the room, bouncing around us, merging with the whispers. My heart raced as I pushed myself to run faster. I didn't know where we were going, only that we had to get away from whatever lurked in the darkness. "Do you see an exit?" he called out, panting just behind me. "I'm trying." My voice came out breathless. I scanned the area, searching for a door or a window. The shadows shifted, elongating and grabbing at my legs. I could almost feel them pulling me back, trying to stop me from escaping. Suddenly, a bright flash lit up the room, momentarily blinding us. I stumbled, crashing into a dusty table, sending old books tumbling to the ground. He grabbed my arm, steadying me just as the light faded. A shape emerged at the far end of the room, silhouetted against the dim glow of the box. "Get back," he shouted, stepping in front of me protectively. My eyes widened as the figure began to take form. It was humanoid but twisted. Its limbs were too long, its skin a sickly gray that shimmered with an unnatural light. "Help us," the voice echoed again, but this time it was closer. The pleading tone sent chills down my spine. "What do they want?" I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. "Whatever is happening here, we need to break whatever connection this place has," he replied, eyes darting around for an escape. The figure beckoned, its long fingers curled as if inviting us closer. "Help!" The growl from before transformed into a cacophony of voices, all pleading for assistance, weaving in and out of coherence. I felt the box's pulse match the heartbeat in my chest. "You think they're trapped?" I asked. The words slipped out before I could stop them. "Is that any better than what we're dealing with?" He shot back, his voice edged with panic. "We can't help them if they're dangerous." But I could sense a strange pull, an urge to understand what they meant. My mind raced. What if they're not the ones we should be afraid of? Without thinking, I stepped forward. He grabbed my arm, eyes wide. "No, we don't know what will happen." But the figure's gaze held me. I felt an odd sense of pity and empathy. "I have to know," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Just then, the shadows lurched forward, surging around us, blocking our path. I could see other figures emerging from that darkness, their faces contorted in pain. Panic flooded me again, but before I could turn back, the growling intensified. The walls began closing in as though trying to swallow us whole. "Let us go," he shouted, pulling me back. But something inside me resisted. I needed to understand this horror, this haunting presence. That's when I saw it. A glimmering stone from the box now lay on the ground, catching the last bit of light. It pulsed gently, and I could hear it calling to me. Maybe this was the key to everything. "Wait," I said, moving toward it. But as I reached out, the shadows lunged, and the growls became a deafening roar, drowning out my thoughts. "Don't," he shouted, but it was too late. The moment I touched the stone, a wave of energy surged through my body, and the room shook violently. Everything went black once more, and I felt myself being pulled into the void. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the cold floor of the library, the walls returning to their familiar dusty state. The air felt different, lighter. I scrambled to my feet, panic rising when I caught sight of the man from the café, kneeling beside me. Relief mixed with confusion washed over me as I recognized that we had escaped the chaos. But did that mean we were free? "Are you okay?" he asked, concern lacing his features. I think I am." My voice trembled as I looked around, desperate for answers. The box, the shadows, the woman, they felt like nightmares tangled in the corners of my mind. What happened? Did we break it? "I don't know." He frowned, scanning the library around us. "When you touched that stone, everything went dark. It was like we were pulled back here." There was a heavy silence. I could still hear echoes of the whispers lingering in my mind, faint but persistent. "Do you think we released them? The ones in the fog?" "I don't know," he repeated, frustration creeping into his tone. "But we're back. And that's something, right?" I nodded, but unease lodged itself in my chest. What about the woman? The growls? The others? The questions tumbled out of me faster than I could process them. The shadows that had haunted us felt like they were lurking just beyond the edges of my memory. "We might not be able to answer those just yet," he replied cautiously. "But there might be a way to find out more." I turned toward the shelves filled with old books, feeling a pull toward the one that had led us to this madness in the first place. We should check the history book again. Maybe it holds the key to understanding what we just experienced. As we approached, I felt a familiar weight pressing down on my shoulders, a mixture of fear and determination propelling me forward. Finally, I grasped the book and flipped through the pages, searching for something, anything to explain the connection between the town, the fog, and the shadows. But the page I stopped on was blank. "What's wrong?" he asked, leaning closer. "There's nothing here," I murmured, flipping through more pages only to find the blankness spreading. I thought there might be records or warnings, something to help us. It's like the book is rejecting our connection to it, he stated, disbelief etched across his face. Or maybe it wants us to figure it out ourselves. My heart raced as I continued flipping, desperate for answers. There's something we missed, I can feel it. Suddenly, the library door creaked open. I spun around, my heart leaping to my throat. A figure stood silhouetted against the light, a woman in a dark coat with hair that fell elegantly over her shoulders. My breath caught in my throat as realization flooded back. It was her. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice sweet yet chilling, echoing the torment I had felt in the fog. I stood frozen, speechless, as she stepped inside, her presence enveloping us like a shroud. The man next to me instinctively shifted closer, protectively. "Are you lost?" she continued, eyes locking onto mine, searching. "You can stay with us. Forever." "Stay?" I echoed, a wave of dread washing over me as the connection sparked through the air. "No, we understand now. We won't be a part of this anymore." Her smile wavered, a hint of something darker flashing in her eyes. "You think you can leave?" she mused, stepping forward. "You think it's that simple?" I felt a chill run through me, but I also felt something else, a growing anger, a stubborn defiance laced with the lingering memories of the others, the ones lost to the fog. "We're not afraid of you." The moment hung in the air, thick with tension. The woman's expression shifted, revealing confusion and anger mingled together as if she hadn't expected resistance. "We don't belong to the fog," I pressed, my voice steadier now. "We know there's something deeper here. If you exist, then so do they. If we can help them, we can help ourselves." Her laughter chilled the air, sending shivers through my spine. "You won't find what you seek here. You cannot redeem the lost." Tension crackled as shadows poured into the room, filling the corners. The whispers flared back to life around us, blending with the shadows, echoing their grievances. Help us," I turned back to the man beside me, our eyes meeting in silent agreement. "We have to face it," I whispered, both frightened and determined. The woman's smirk widened. "Why fight it? You could join them." "No," he shouted. "We're not going back. We won't give up." And just as our defiance peaked, the library trembled, and the flickering light dimmed as the fog began to seep in through the door. As panic surged, I grasped the barrier that separated us from the unknown and pushed back against the shadows enveloping us. I could feel their presence, their pain mingling with my own, and I'd be damned if I allowed it to trap us. The woman's eyes glowed, wide with realization, and the shadows recoiled as if afraid of what we were throwing at them. In that moment, I felt it, the connection we shared with the ones who had been lost to the fog. Their whispers mingled in my mind with my own words. "We will fight for you." The shadows surged forward, engulfing the woman, but our resolve burned brighter. The memory of the box pulsed through us, intertwining our spirits as we connected with the lost remnants of those who once roamed free. But as the darkness began to swirl within the library, it all faded into uncertainty, leaving me standing at the door of choice with unanswered questions hanging in the air. The fog outside loomed heavy, mysterious, yet filled with the promise of convergence. "Are you ready?" he asked, the uncertainty reflected in his gaze. I took a deep breath, uncertain of what lay ahead, both frightened and exhilarated. "Let us find out," I replied, stepping forward. Whether we would confront the depths of the fog or discover yet another layer of this small town's enigma was unknown. All I knew was that the whispers would guide our path forward, and they would echo long after we chose to face our fate.